Timothy Omotoso is set to continue at the High Court in Port Elizabeth this afternoon. The trial was postponed yesterday to allow the judge to apply her mind with regards to an authorization certificate and the jurisdiction over some of the charges against Omotoso. Our reporter Jayed-Leigh Paulse joins us now. Very good morning to you, Jayed-Leigh. What's the latest?
A very good morning to you, Des. Very well. We're coming to you outside the Port Elizabeth High Court. In exactly 3 hours, the Timothy Omotoso trial will kick off. Just to recap, we are still in debates with regards to that authorization certificate that was supposed to be handed over to Judge Omar Skuman. You would know, if you've been following the trial yesterday, the state prosecutor, Jayed-Leigh did not furnish her with a new certificate, but rather gave a previous certificate saying that that still stands in court. And this is very important because the defense's arguments, or Peter Doberman, the defense lawyer for Timothy Omotoso's arguments, is that all the charges on the indictment should be heard in their respective area codes. Now, you would know that only 7 of the offences of the 63 main alternative charges and 34 charges, only 7 of them were actually held in Port Elizabeth, or the offences took place in Port Elizabeth, whereas the other charges, all 97 of them together collectively, were held in Mpumalanga, in the Western Cape, Secunda, and even overseas in Israel. So the defence really saying there that this court, the Port Elizabeth High Court, has no jurisdiction to hear the rest of the charges, and they really just want the courts in the respective area codes across the country to hear those offences. But it is a logistical nightmare. We spoke to Kuban Chetty, who is a criminal law attorney, and he says that it's very unlikely that Judge Omar Skuman will be in favour of the state, or rather in favour of the defence, but it remains to be seen whether she will actually grant permission to the state to hear all the charges collectively in the Port Elizabeth High Court, or whether some of the charges will be heard in various other courts in the country, Desiree. And you would know that this is going to probably be a tedious affair if the defence get their way. Desiree.
Jayed-Leigh, what's the specific gripe with the old authorization certificate that's making it not permissible now?
Well, defense lawyer Peter Doberman is saying that since the trial is de novo, which means that it's starting afresh, that any certificate or applications that were brought in the previous trial does not stand in this trial. It is invalid, and really saying that because the trial has started from the beginning, from the scratch, a new certificate was supposed to be furnished to the defense as well as the new judge, citing the new charges on the indictment, but also if there was any irregularities such as this authorization certificate, that should have also been brought to the book. Now, the state prosecutor Jayed-Leigh was saying that this actually does stand in court because he actually got an authorization from the former head of the NPA, Sean Abrams, and this was attached to the indictment. Also saying there that the current indictment has no additional charges. But there has been a lot of back and forth with the state and the defense saying that the indictment, the former indictment, was updated, and this is where the gripe comes in. The defense saying that they don't know which indictment was actually signed off with that authorization letter and which one they should go for. So today at 2 o'clock we will hear if Judge Omar Skuman will actually go with the original indictment and also attach that authorization letter, the previous authorization letter that was signed by the former NPA head Sean Abrams.
Jayed-Leigh, do we know what sort of conversations the NPA is having internally in terms of issuing a new statement? You've just stated now that the issue is with the tallying of the different cases. What's at issue?
Well, as it stands right now, we actually have not been able to speak to any of the officials at the National Prosecuting Authority. They've been very tight-lipped with regards to this. When I did speak to the state prosecutor, Jayed-Leigh, he did tell me that he could not understand why the current certificate, the authorization certificate, would not stand in court, because that is the certificate that he was furnished by the former NPA head. And he just merely saying that, the indictment indictment as well, there has been no additional charges. And Desiree, this is very important, because if the indictment, in fact, had additional charges added to it, they would then have to, go back to the drawing board and get that new certificate to be furnished and handed over to the court as an annexure. But unfortunately, that did not take place. So the state really saying there that this is just a delay tactic by the defense. We've heard the state saying that countless times in court proceedings, that this was in fact a delaying tactic, and that Judge Irma Schoeman should apply her mind, and this should actually just be quashed. There should be no reason why the current certificate can't stand in court. So Desiree, we expect Judge Irma Schoeman to give her verdict at 2 o'clock with regards to this, and it remains to be seen whether there will be a postponement. If it does sway in the defense's side, we'll possibly see a postponement for the rest of the week, because that would mean that the state would have to go through that entire indictment and then obviously approach the NDTP and possibly get another certificate. But we don't know yet if Judge Irma Schoeman will actually allow a new certificate, seeing that she gave the state up until yesterday to furnish her with a new document.
So basically, based on what you're saying, we can assure our viewers, especially those who have an interest in this case, that this is only a setback, but eventually court proceedings will begin, whether it's just to handle the 7 cases that relate to Port Elizabeth, and then the others can go to other areas, but court proceedings will begin at some point.
That's very true. I think everyone wants the technical side and the legal jargon to be set aside so we can see the witnesses take to the stand. It has been a back and forth since the trial started, with several applications being brought by the defense. But I think after today, all the viewers will more or less see whether we will actually sit for the rest of the week, whether a witness will actually take to the stand, Desiree, or whether the defense has another ace up their sleeve and a possible another application will be brought.
Jayed-Leigh Paulse, thank you so much for that update. Blaine?